everyone. Welcome back to the Green Tea Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Emma. And today we have a special episode all about contracts. As many of you guys might know or might not know, I was a K-pop artist signed into an agency in Korea. And today's special guest is Dave. He also has experience in the crazy K-pop contract. So hello, Dave.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Can you just introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Dave Disci. I run a K-pop channel. I talk about K-pop news. I also am someone that has been involved in contracts as well as bad deals. So I am very excited to be in this episode and talk about it.
Bad deals. And Emma is going to be showing us, is there a relationship between contracts, legality?
Yeah, so I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about the way that legalities and law and things like that fit into astrology. In short, I think there are many ways that legal things can be seen in the natal chart, but generally speaking, a lot of people will look to things like the seventh house, which is Libra. It's all about fairness, justice, balance. You'll sometimes hear a lot of stories about people who have prominent Libra placements being lawyers or doing some type of legal work. Sagittarius also falls here because Sagittarius rules the house of beliefs and morals and ethics. So, you can see how that would tie into something like a contract. Does it actually cater to the people that it's meant to serve, and what beliefs are kind of working together or potentially not together to form a contract and agreement. But yeah, it'll be interesting to dive into, I think, when we get there.
Nice. So Dave, what is your fixed sign actually in astrology?
So I know I am Aquarius,
Oh,
and I think that's as far as I would know about astrology. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting because Dave, I am also an Aquarius. Yay, this is amazing. So all three of us are actually air signs. Grace is a Gemini. So for anybody listening, the air signs they encompass like social connection. They're really good with people. I mean, maybe, I guess it depends, right? But they're good with people. They're great with communication and helping connect vast different populations of people as well. We'll get more into it another time, but yeah, when's your birthday, Dave?
February 5th.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'm January 28th, so sort of. My brother actually is an Aquarius, and his birthday is on February 5th, so that's pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah.
No way. Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, there's so much that a natal chart can like cover. I guess now that I have your chart, we can also start talking about contracts and all this type of stuff. And then if something comes up that I feel maybe I could pull your chart into, I'm like more than happy to share that, obviously. And anything that you're uncomfortable with, we can just edit it out.
so let's just get into the K-pop world. So K-pop contracts a little bit different. I know that it used to have no limit actually when it comes to how long you could sign an artist. So if you guys know 동방신기, maybe Dave, you guys know, DBSK. That used to be a huge group in Korea. And it was known that SM Entertainment, one of the biggest agencies in Korea, used to sign artists for literally like 15 years. So in Korea, you are bounded to your agency in every way, meaning like they own every single one of your copyrights, everything you do, your schedule, pretty much your life, but not in a bad way because you have your dream and that's what you want to do. So I do get it. But then the group 동방신기 got into a huge lawsuit, and that completely changed the way that artists were signed to the agencies. So now there's actually a law where the maximum you could sign an artist in Korea is 7 years. I believe actress and actors as well. So when I got into K-pop, the maximum that you usually sign an artist, I was signed for 7 years into an agency. And that is where we get into this crazy world because I actually went into a whole copyright and contract lawsuit with a previous agency. It's either get into a lawsuit if you want to get out, or you try to mutually end it, which is kind of not rare, but rare since they invested a lot of money into you. Why would they let you go, right? Or wait the 7 years out. But I knew that if I wait 7 years out, I'm going to be like 30, 31. And I can't do any promotions beyond that. So I got into a whole lawsuit with my previous agency, which completely stopped my K-pop career, which is why a lot of you guys don't see me in Korea. Yeah, that's what's been happening after my last single, I believe in 2018 or 2019. So I don't think I've ever talked about this, but that's the gist of the Korean lifestyle. And Dave, I know you weren't a musical artist. What were you in Korea? Can you get into a little bit about you?
So I was trying to do various different things. I was trying to just see what stuck. I had a couple of friends that were very into K-pop and they wanted to audition and they wanted to do several things in entertainment. So they brought me into this world and they were like, well, if you come audition with me, I'll do it. And I wanted to be supportive. So I went along and I helped them and I did it. And then that's how I started to learn about the entertainment. I started to learn um, that like in Korea, it seems like being in entertainment feels more like an actual career. Like in America, if you tell your parents you want to be in entertainment, they're like, where do you even start? Like, what do you do? Whereas in Korea, it's like you can just audition, and if you're really good, you can get it and you can potentially make it into a career. So I like that. And I was trying to just go into acting. I was trying to see if I could be an influencer. I was just seeing what would work. And then it led me down this path where I became so interested in Korean culture and like the entertainment side, and I really wanted to talk about it. And I got really passionate because I knew a lot of the stuff that was happening behind the scenes, and I wanted an outlet to talk about it because I saw a lot of misunderstanding online.
You actually went to Korea to do all of this?
So I went to some of the auditions were here in America when they did like the casting call. So I know like JYP sometimes does America, stuff like that. So I was here, I have been to Korea, but I was here in America doing the auditions.
And then I know your story of you signed into or almost signed into a K-pop agency. So was that here or when you flew to Korea?
So that was here in the
Okay.
US.
Okay.
So I ended up meeting someone who he was the management of a big K-pop star, Ailey, and that is what he used to kind of draw me in. He was like, "Oh, we know Ailey, so we can have you on board, and then maybe you can even do an interview with her, and she could be on your channel." And then he also added in like, "Oh, they've been backstage, and they've like because of Ailey, they've met like BTS and their team. So then they were like, okay, if you sign with us, you can get access to all these different K-pop idols." And then they gave me their contract, and I was shocked after like I gave it to a lawyer because I didn't see anything wrong with it. But when I gave it to a lawyer, they were like, "Yeah, this is not good. Don't sign this. Pass it, and then just kind of move along."
Oh, can you get tell us a little bit about what was in the contract that shocked you?
Yeah.
One of the things I have the contract right here.
Oh, he's pulling up receipts. Just kidding.
Yeah, literally. Oh
Um,
my gosh.
so mine was different, where like I know you talked about 7 years, so that is pretty standard with a K-pop idol. Mine was they had an option between me to sign a forever contract or one for just 3 years. So I was like, okay, I don't know if you can do anything, so let me
Wait, you
just
said
try.
forever contract?
Yes.
That's crazy. Oh my god.
What was interesting to me was because this was a 3-year contract, but there was a forever clause in there that I'm pretty sure I was like, whoa, what is this? Because the part that stuck out to me was they would take 25% of what I make in 3 years. Fine, whatever. I mean, that's like, compared how K-pop contracts go, that's like not bad. But then they had a clause in there that said 20% of all money in perpetuity. So
Wow.
even if I left the industry, even if I was working at McDonald's, it would have been 20% of
Oh
that for the
man.
rest of my life. And then they had access to like my taxes and like the accounting books and everything. So I was just like, whoa, that was like a big red flag for me
Yeah.
where I was like, I don't know if this is right for me. I mean, the entertainment industry is so crazy. I don't know how long we have in the entertainment industry in general. So I'm like, well, what if I do end up working at McDonald's one day? Like, do I want, like, I'm not going to be making enough. Do I want them to take 20% of what I make? You know what I mean? So that's
Wow.
what I was juggling with in my head.
Wait, so that's what perpetuity means? Like literally they take everything?
Yeah, forever.
Forever. Yeah.
What's the definition that made it stamp forever?
After the term, so that would be the 3 years, after the term, managers shall continue to receive 20% of all gross monies in perpetuity.
Wow. Yeah, and in perpetuity literally means forever. Like it just means
Really?
forever.
Did they mean like the stuff that you made with them, like if let's say you made a YouTube video with Ailey or whatever, and they meant like the stuff you did with them, or like literally everything beyond.
So that was what the lawyer said. The lawyer said because it's not specified, they can
Hmm.
argue forever.
You received this contract as what was supposed to be your role?
So okay, so this was an entertainment label. They were signing K-pop artists. They
Got it.
also were freshly starting an influencer division, and they had
I see.
about
Okay.
5 influencers, I think, that were in there at the time,
Got it.
and they wanted me to come on board with that.
Wow, this is very interesting because Grace, I mean, I know that we actually haven't released this episode yet, but the episode we did with David, I remember when he was telling us about like contracts in the entertainment industry. David was like a casting director that we had an episode with, but I remember I had said on the episode that I had heard that even like modeling agencies here in America, I'm sure in other countries as well, but in America, you know, they now have divisions for influencers and stuff. And there's a whole new side of knowledge that we're getting from influencers talking about the legalities of it and contracts, you know, because obviously people who are, like you said, models, actors, these people, you know, they're used to contracts. They understand that this is like par for the course. This happens all the time. Music artists, same thing. But to now be kind of I guess representing influencers and also putting them under the same type of contract with the same type of you know, legalities. It's interesting to hear how I mean, not that all agencies are bad, of course, but it's interesting to see how agencies are kind of, you know, using influencers as another way to, I don't want to say like take things from them, but it's like, you know, another population of people that they can kind of simulate an agreement with that will benefit them. So yeah, that's just wow, that's really interesting. Okay, I understand now. I was just wondering.
That actually reminds me of the whole influencer thing. I was actually signed to a YouTube agency, if a lot of people remember. There used to be MCNs. It's not really a hot thing anymore. Maybe Dave, you might have been signed to one. But when I first started my Grazy TV and my some other channels, I was doing really hot in numbers. Like I was getting hundreds of thousands of views. And this agency approached me and said that they will get me brand deals, some other stuff like with YouTube. They'll help me with a lot of things and they'll take 20% of everything that I make on YouTube AdSense. So that was contracted for about only a 1 year, but there was a clause in there where later they argued, oh, we actually own you for 2, 3 years. So my manager had to literally fight for me, like go there. Well, he didn't go, well, he went there to meet them in the first meeting, but he had to fight them over the phone and everything. And I remember they did nothing for me. Like they got me one brand deal in like the entire year. I mean, we were paying the 20%, which is still a lot of money. Yet what I was getting from them was like not much. So MCN seems to be kind of like a, I don't want to say a scam, but it's not worth it at all. So, like you said, Emma, there are a lot of agencies who are trying to like cling on to you to pretend to be someone that they can help you and just take the money without the actual benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I think an influencer agreement with like a label or with an agency, I would say isn't really necessary. And as you said, like your experience with an MCN, I'm sure you could have gotten brand deals on your own and you could have gotten one
Yeah.
brand deal on your own, right? So when I hear that like an influencer is signed with an agency, there's not much that the agency can do because the way influencers make money is either through AdSense, brand deals, or selling things. If an agency comes in and they help you with other things, then it's not, I don't really feel like it's an influencer anymore. That's like you're acting or you're whatever. So, so like if it's just an influencer agreement, I don't think you need to be in an agency. And that's, I guess, what I've come to.
Dave, did you fight with the agency and say, hey, this is what I want? Or did you just say no straight away?
I went back and forth and I said, can you add this in the contract? And they added in very vaguely like what I wanted and in which I was like, you're not going to put it like, in detail. And they were like, well, we can't do it in detail because this is the entertainment industry and we don't know for sure if we can get you these things. And I'm like, but then like you're putting it in detail, asking me to like make sure I give you this amount of money. So, in that case, I'm like, okay, I'm good.
What are some things that you would consider, I don't want to say like red flags, but sort of like a red flag that indicates some type of potentially unfair contract for both of you, actually? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, definitely the forever thing was a big red flag, especially after like I told him I was like I didn't want to sign the first forever agreement. I wanted to sign a 3 year just to try it out. And the fact that in the
Mm,
3 year it was still also a forever, like,
yeah,
so it was like no
yeah,
matter which way I chose, it was going to be forever. So that would be a big red flag. The other red flag for me was not wanting to put the things that I wanted in there.
yeah,
Mm,
And you can't guarantee things, but you can at least put like an effort to
yeah,
try to
absolutely.
do it,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I didn't feel like that was necessarily in there.
Inside my K-pop contract, it was actually in the beginning, it's 7 to 3. So 70% of whatever you make goes to the company and 30% goes to the artist. But the thing about Korea, or at least K-pop contract, is that that is after you pay off your debts. So let's say you've been training for 3 years, you debut, you go to the hair salon, you eat, you use the gas, you pay the managers, the training, teachers, whatever. Let's say you accumulate like $500,000 of debt within your 5 member group. You have to pay that off. It's really confusing because it's like, do you pay off $500,000 or does the company invest and they invest like 50%? So you only have to pay back 50%. That's kind of confusing to me as well. But ultimately, they make you pay thousands of debts first and then you get 30%. And that 30% is split between like the members. So if you have 5 members, yeah, you get, who knows how much. But if you're an A-list group like Blackpink or, whoever you may be, you do get paid a lot of money back and you get to pay that debt faster, but it's only within those A groups or maybe the B groups that get to actually make money. I remember I made zero money as a K-pop artist, and they're very not a lot of companies are very forefront about the expense sheet. So they're supposed to give you like this is how much we made, this is how much we spent on the managers, the food, blah blah blah, and they're not transparent with that. So that is where I went into this huge lawsuit with where I told them, and it's in the contract where you have to send the artist the expense sheets. And if they don't do that, that is technically breach of contracts. So I would ask you guys to ask your agencies, give me the expense list every month, period.
wow, I didn't even think about that. That's so interesting. I wonder if, I mean, maybe Dave, I don't know if you can speak to this, but like, is that similar in the American entertainment industry? Do you know? Or, with the whole expense thing and the paying the debt before you can get paid type of thing?
So the American industry is very different. There's no like trainee program. So
Yeah.
there is no, as far as I'm aware, there's no like huge debt that's accrued. The way that
Okay.
the labels work is almost like a bank. They give you a loan. So they'll be like, oh,
Oh.
here's $2 million. We want 6 albums. And then that's
Ah.
$2 million like for everything, as in even like the
Yeah.
food you eat. It's not just for the
Yeah.
music videos and the recording. So you have to
Mm,
somehow make that work. And then
mm,
you try to make the albums and you hope that it's a hit. If the label notices that like the songs aren't taking off and are not doing well, they kind of freeze you and like they won't necessarily
oh,
sometimes they won't drop you, they'll just kind of freeze you and so you can't really do anything. And then that's
mm,
when artists start to take lawsuits because they're like, I want to get out of this and whatever. I
mm.
haven't
Oh,
heard of the repayment thing as
okay.
much. That was like a new thing when I got into like the K-pop stuff. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. They do that.
Jeez, wow. So is there actually, I don't know how that works. Like I've heard of some people having like an independent agent that's not part of like an agency but just an independent person. Like what are the differences there? Is there one that maybe is more beneficial than the other? Again, if you guys can share about it. If not, that's totally fine.
Well, I work with the personal manager, so the way that works is just giving them a percentage of what you make a month. So instead of them giving you a loan, you having to pay back, I think that's a lot more cleaner. And I do expense sheets every single month. So I ask them, hey, please, what did you spend on? What did I spend on? What are we splitting? So everything needs to be clear in the beginning when you like first work with them. Do not do this later on because you get into this like, oh, I'm close with my manager, like we're friends. So you start to kind of like not pay attention to the little details and then later you get into a whole fight because of that. So always do it in the beginning.
Okay.
So can I ask what has your manager helped you with?
So my management does like my finances, taxes. They get me deals. Um, if we also split expenses. So if he has to do something for me to get somebody, then we'll split that. Like, let's say, like paying somebody's dinner. If I have to fly out, then we also split that plane ticket, for example. Um, Getting like music producers for me, anything that I ask for in terms of entertainment is what they help me with.
So I don't like my experience is that I work pretty much on my own. And I think the like the when it's like one person or a smaller agency, the only difference I see with that versus the big one is just the amount of resources they have available to you, whether that's money, whether that's connections. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
people think they want a big label or a big agency, but sometimes even if they do have a lot of resources, they're more tied up into the bigger groups and they wouldn't be willing to help
Right.
kind of like if you just got in, you'd have to like get in, blow up, and then they're like, oh my God, who's this person
Right.
blowing up? And then they start helping
Yeah.
you. And that kind of applies with anything, I feel.
I have experience. Well, I know friends who are assigned to a really big K-pop agency, like as an actor or actress, or as a singer, and it's huge agency. You'll know if I just said it, but they don't get as much opportunities like ever, even if they're signed to the big label. And that's because if you don't blow up or if you don't have that opportunity, they still won't give you opportunities, even if you're signed to like the number one label.
There could be labels that don't do their work, right? They're not pitching you, they're not trying to get you on
Yeah.
TV, they're not doing any of that stuff. But there are labels and people who are pitching you and are trying, but then they're just not getting the offers back. So then the label's like, well, I pitched so and so 50 times. They're not getting anything. So then I'm going to move on to someone who is because I need to make money. So I can't
Right.
really fully blame them. I kind of understand, but it
Yeah.
is, yeah.
I do want to go into I've actually went into a huge lawsuit in Korea. Like I needed to hire lawyers. I went to the police station because they reported me. So you need a lawyer for that. So I spent a lot of money dealing with legal things. And in the beginning it was really scary, but coming out of it, I learned so much. And in my contract, so there's something called like the subcontract where you have the standard contract and it's a 7 year by law. This is what you have to sign, and you can write like another contract between you and the agency, which I think is odd because it kind of defeats the purpose. But in that subcontract, and I was so young that I didn't know exactly the meaning of it. And in that subcontract, it basically stated that if I breach the contract, I have to pay them back like 10 times the debt amount, which could accumulate to be just unfathomable amounts of money, which is not fair. There's contracts. So I would say definitely look into those subcontracts that you make agreement between you and the agency outside of the legal 7 year contracts. So if you're young, I would say definitely spend $100, $200 in getting a lawyer and getting it reviewed instead of later on spending thousands of dollars with a lawyer and getting into that kind of trouble. But in Korea, it's interesting because you don't have to be in the court. The lawyer can all do it for you. And the legal system works a little similar, but a little different because there's no small claims court in Korea. This is just 100% civil lawsuits. I know in America, if it's under $5,000, you can do small claim court. You don't need a lawyer. Yeah, so in Korea, it might be a little bit more scarier to go into a lawsuit.
Doing business, like that was one of the things that fortunately somebody had told me right when I started. They were like, if you're going to do any type of coaching or astrology or whatever it is, right, which is what I do for work, they said to make sure that you talk with a lawyer about like the contracts that you're having your clients sign, right? That explicitly says like this is not, especially for my industry, like this is not medical advice, right? This is not going to diagnose you. This is not going to magically treat your problems. If you're in active psychosis or active suicidal ideation, this is probably not for you type of situation, just to prevent any type of miscommunication down the line. Like, you know, with astrology and life coaching, it's very easy to come across people who may make statements like, oh, you know, if you don't like your job, like you should quit your job, right? But then say that you are a client and you run with that, you go, you quit your job, you can't find another one, now you're homeless. You can easily turn around and try to sue that person if there's not, I think, proper contracts in place, or stuff like that. So it's interesting how I think across all industries you find this implementation of legal documents that are really meant to protect. Ideally they're meant to protect you or even the company in some form, but it's interesting when we start to also see things veer into, this is not just about justice and fairness, this is about opportunism, this is about transactionality, this is about power and what I can take from this, and this idea of like giving an inch and taking a mile. So yeah, I just wanted to stress that, because I think for anybody, if there's anybody listening who's also into astrology or trying to start a healing business, I know some of the people that watch are into that. That's something to also consider, is the legal aspect of it, and just making sure that you're protected as a practitioner against any type of, potential issues in a way.
Like just starting out, I think is the most scariest thing, because even when I was first starting out, I didn't know about like, well, taxes is like the smallest one, right? But like the other things are like, even as you said, like saying something that may be perceived wrong, there's actual insurance for that. So you can actually
Right.
buy insurance that you pay every month for that. Like just
Yeah.
even knowing that, like, oh, if someone does sue and then I have insurance, but then also like I need an LLC to protect like the stuff that I have. And like all of
Yes.
that business stuff, learning from the in the beginning with the contracts and everything is so scary. And like that
Yeah.
to me is like probably the most daunting thing of being in entertainment, because when you're working for someone, that's all taken care of for you. Like that you don't really
Yeah.
have to think about it.
And a lot of people don't know that actually emails and text messages could be legally binding. That's why after the whole lawsuit, I learned keep everything in emails. And in Korea, it's actually legal to record conversations between you and the person, and they don't have to know. So this could be recorded, and I could use this in court. And I actually had a recording between me and the agency of what we were talking about. And I presented that to the court. And although it was not sufficient evidence, because you should have a lot more, I wish I could have kept all those like text messages, because it kind of got deleted. And that could have supported a lot of my arguments. So definitely keep all those receipts, emails, all the writings.
I was gonna ask, like, can't the court like subpoena the text messages from the other party, because like they would still have it?
Yeah, but there's evidence that she didn't want to present. That's why I wish I had it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But Dave, I want to ask you, do you have experience in like the American agency system? And was there something we can, do you have any experience in the American agency systems and entertainment?
In the American entertainment industry, that was my initial like start into the entertainment industry. I've done things with like MTV and whatever, and so I have experience with that. The only issue that I've gotten, and I'm sure there's a lot of these like issues in general, but the only issues that I have is getting paid. So like sometimes it'll be hinted towards you, like, oh, you'll be compensated, right? But then like if you don't look up over your contract, sometimes it's not in there. And sometimes a lot of people in America, they'll try really hard to not pay you and not pay the talent if they can get away with it. And especially if you're not like with SAG or if you're not union, they don't have to pay you. So that is something that you have to get protected by. And then also making sure that if there are things like you need extra money for transportation and then that sort of stuff, you make sure that that's clear too, and that you want that. The only issue that they're shady of, I feel, is just getting paid. Like I feel like a lot of contracts are very shady about that.
Interesting.
I do hear that actually from like people that I know that are in the entertainment industry. That's the one thing that they all say. They said the same thing. They're like, it's getting paid that sometimes goes to the wayside, and some of them have found themselves in positions where they're having to like hound these people for their money, or like you said, like really actually look over the contract, because yeah, if they can get away with not paying you, they will.
Emma, you also act on the side. Did you have any problems with like contracts or payment?
No, so yeah, I do like background acting here and there. So I do it through an agency, a casting agency that specifically casts for background acting. Fortunately, no. I'm always like paid on time. I'm also non-union. Like I'm not part of SAG or anything. Not sure if I'd want to join SAG. Like I haven't even really thought about whether or not that's something I'd really want. But yeah, no, we're on as W-2, like we're paid as like W-2 employees, so there isn't really as, I mean, I guess I don't know if that's actually makes a difference, but we don't seem to have an issue being paid. It's very systematic. It's very easy by the books. But I've heard of some of my other friends who are 1099 with other things that they start to experience issues with getting paid on time, or it's, well, getting paid in general, but mainly getting paid on time. It's like they're waiting months for their money to hit. Um, but yeah, no, sorry. To answer your question, no, I don't generally find myself having issues with that. Thank God. Because if I did, I don't think I would do it. Because the other thing to remember, I think, with background acting is it's not the same as like landing a role in a feature film. You know, I'm not making $100,000 or whatever. It's like I'm making like what, $200 maybe. It's really that I'm there for the experience, to understand the industry, to learn more about entertainment and what, you know, different avenues there are in entertainment. That's why I do it, really. I haven't been doing it much recently, but I used to. And yeah, so I think for me, you know, if it got to the point where they weren't actually paying me the like what, $175 that I'm owed, I'd be like, this isn't even worth it, you know. So I'm sure the game changes, yeah, when you make more money. That's all.
In those kind of cases, one thing I do like about having a manager is that they protect you and they will hound the person if there's something wrong with the contract or if you didn't pay, or even if you have an email and it's not you. Pretend that you have an assistant or a manager, and that makes it like there's like a little bit of a barrier between emotionally, and it's more of a protection, honestly, if you have like a manager, a lawyer. So I would even have a fake assistant name, honestly.
And an agency kind of protects you with that too. Like if you're, as you said, like if you're a part of a casting agency, I'm assuming you're getting your checks from the agency as opposed to from the movie itself, right?
Correct. Correct.
So the agency will just pay you and then they will hound the movie or the
Yes.
studio to get paid. So then you kind of get protected from that.
Or that responsibility falls on somebody. They're kind of happy to take it in a sense. Yeah, exactly. So this is interesting, right? Because of course, correct me if I'm wrong. Grace, you work with a manager, like an independent kind of like manager, and Dave, you work alone. Like you don't have. Okay, interesting. So based on since both of you have kind of, I'm sure, dabbled in, you know, like agency stuff or non-agency stuff, what do you feel works best for you? Do you, like Dave, do you find that working independently by yourself without management or an agent is best? Grace, do you find that you like the setup that you have with an agent, or would you like to move to an agency or move back? What are your guys' thoughts? Super curious.
Definitely, I will not go back to a K-pop agency, just because I had this whole lawsuit. Like it just shook me up, you know. I was like, I don't want to do this. I think being alone is okay, but I am a personal believer in collaborations. Like, it's hard to get up there with just by yourself. We're here to collaborate with others, just like we're collaborating right now. It's the synergy and the energy that I think matters. So even if I don't get paid as much as I would have if I didn't have an agency or a manager, I got up there because of us, and that's just what I believe in. But finding the right person and the right agency might take time. So definitely, also just because you're close to your manager or close to your agency, don't be loosey-goosey at times. Just put your foot down when you have to. Business is business.
So they say this quote, and I'll use it, which is that if you want to go fast, go by yourself, and if you want to go further, then go with a team.
Go together. Yeah.
And so I have been looking for a team. It's not that I just want to stay by myself, but it's finding the right person. I mean, I was telling Grace yesterday on the phone, I was like, I had referenced a publicist to Grace, and that publicist ended up kind of screwing me over. And I'm just realizing like, oh, I'm not finding the right people to be a part of my team. Someone that seemed really good and really invested ended up just like not being that way. So to me, it's been really tough finding the right match. And it's not even just like people that are good, right? Because there are a lot of good people, but it's people that share the same value as me. So there was a publicist that I worked for before this recent one who was a really good person. She was very nice, but she had other goals in her life where she was like, I was not her priority. So we were not meeting constantly to talk about what my needs were or what direction to go in and whatever. And the stuff that she was doing was fine, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. And so Right now I'm staying alone because I haven't found the right people, and I think that that is going to be okay. It's going to be good for my wallet for now, and it's going to be fine for now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you said it really well. Like, the cost of doing business with the wrong people can sometimes land you in a much worse situation than just sticking by yourself, doing what you need to do until you find the right person. It's like, I mean, it's the same thing as dating, right? Like, people always say it's better to be alone, than to be with somebody that doesn't treat you right, or that makes your life kind of like worse, I think there's definitely something to that. And I actually love the quote that you just said, because when Grace was talking, I was thinking that, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Like, it's interesting too, because for me and Grace, like, before we started doing this podcast, there were a few other people that I had considered collaborating with, to do a podcast and to have these conversations and to start blending like different, backgrounds, I guess. And kind of similar to what you're saying, Dave, it didn't really feel right. And the main reason was usually because either the values were misaligned, or some type of vision for the future and what we were both after was misaligned. And so inevitably at some point down the road, it's like, okay, well, even if we're aligned right now, we're straight up telling each other that we are not going to be on the same page come X number of minutes, days, hours, years from here. Or just, of course, like a values thing, I think is really important. And interestingly enough, like, just to add in some astrology here, when we're talking about things like legalities and money, they both are encompassed by Venus energy. Venus is the natural ruler of Libra and Taurus. Libra is about collaboration, connection, the social aspect, and the mental aspect. So if we think about like a legal contract, that's very Libran in nature, because it's meant to be fair and to create some type of fairness, but there is a logical element to it, right? It's not like, oh, I wrote this contract because this is how I feel today. Like, I'm feeling generous, so I'm gonna just, pay, like, let this person take more money, and then the next day you're changing it because of how you feel. No, it's very logical. It's got to be, it has to make sense from an objective standpoint. And the hope and the idea is that when you are able to create and write a fair contract, it genuinely supports like both parties, or if there's multiple parties involved, it can support them all in a way that, again, is fair and just. The other avenue of Venus is connecting to Taurus energy, which rules things like money, material possessions, wealth, worth, and value. And I think it's really interesting how a lot of times we see connection to other people and collaboration tied to money. Like, there is such a connection between those two elements of Venus. And I think that, of course, relationships and finances are separate things, but I actually think a lot of times they play together with one another, especially in the context of business or something like an agency or being signed for, And so I think it's really important, because when one is kind of going south, I think it can impact the other, or going well, it can impact the other. When you collaborate with the right people who share like your values, great things happen. Everybody makes money, everybody's happy, we're reaching higher heights, and we're, growing and expanding. And likewise, if you look at it from the other way, when people share your values, or you prioritize making sure that you are connecting with people that share your values, you end up collaborating and forming relationships with people that actually align with you. And then the same outcome can occur where, we're growing, we're making money, we're this, we're that. So yeah, I just think it's interesting how even in astrology, there is a connection, a deep connection between our material, I don't want to say success, but sort of like our material success, I guess, and our relationships and collaborations.
Is there anything in Dave's chart and my chart where it says that we particularly, or somebody's chart where particularly we will go through legal stuff, or is that just something everybody might go through once in their life?
Well, it's interesting because Grace, I'll start with you, Grace. I know that one of the things that we had mentioned, and this is actually not necessarily legal per se, but it is interesting how this played out for you in a legal sense. Grace, her midheaven, which is your career indicator, is sitting conjunct Chiron, which is the archetype of the wounded healer. And so when Chiron conjuncts your midheaven, it suggests that you can go through situations that somehow wound your public reputation or the public image that you have, perceived or real, meaning like whether it's actually happening or it's just the way that you are perceiving that to happen, like, oh my gosh, my reputation is tanking right now. Either way, that's an indicator there for Grace. She has Chiron and her midheaven both sitting in the sign of Leo, and Leo is the archetype. Well, it's one of many archetypes, but one of them is the performer, the entertainer. It's somebody who is very creative and utilizes their creative self-expression as a means to carry out a mission, or in this case, like the function of their career. So yeah, it's interesting how when I know I had brought that up to you before, that this was like the glaringly obvious thing that stuck out for you. Was it wasn't, say, like, I don't know, like an ex-partner of yours who tried to ruin your reputation and like defame you on the internet. It was specifically a legal, dispute that you were having with a former agency. So I'm just gonna say, I just am looking at Dave's chart right now. Dave's chart, so what's interesting is Dave has Pluto sitting in the 6th house. And so Pluto is the planet of, transformation and like dark, I don't want to say like dark deep, like dark things, but sort of like that under the surface, like grudgy energy, sort of. It can be pain, it can be grief. And generally speaking, though, wherever Pluto sits in your chart, it can sort of indicate like you may face certain betrayals, or even just like shady characters, if you will. Like, even if no one's backstabbing you, it's just like, oh, I have to be careful about this. And so the highest and higher octave of Pluto is someone who understands that it is extremely important to listen deeply to your intuition, because sometimes, kind of like with contracts, if you just take it at face value for what it is and you don't dig and investigate, which is an archetype of Pluto, if you don't dig and investigate like into it, you might miss something really important, right? Like a forever clause inside a 3-year contract. Like that's crazy to me. I mean, it's not crazy to me. I get why they would try that, but that's like, you could easily miss that if you didn't actually look for it, right? So the 6th house in astrology rules the house of service. It's also like work, like literal day-to-day, what you do every day in your routine, but also like your work. And so it's interesting how you have Pluto in the 6th house, suggesting that you may encounter people or situations whereby, there is some type of maybe ulterior motive, right? Or there's some type of shady undercurrent to whatever is going on, and to overcome that, you are called to, like I said, lean into really listening to your intuition. If something feels off to you, investigate that. You know what I mean? Like, really sit with yourself and don't just push it off or brush it off. I mean, it sounds like, of course, you already are understanding this, which is fantastic, and it's part of what got you maybe not into a bad situation, or kept you from getting into a bad situation. So that's what I find kind of interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is always going to happen to you, of course, but it just may be something that does occur in your life, whereas for other people it might occur in a different area of their life, and it's just part of what you're kind of here to learn, and if you will, master in a way, how to like listen to yourself and listen to your instincts, and kind of double check things that don't seem to make a lot of sense, or that seem like there could be something else going on,
Honestly, Dave is doing a good job right now. He got a lawyer from the first bet. Like, I didn't even do that.
I was very lucky. One of my best friends was also a YouTuber, and he had guided me through. And his wife was a lawyer, and that's actually the one who looked over the contract.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think, like, the point that Grace was making earlier about like collaborating with others and how we're all here to help each other. I think one thing that all of us in general could do well to do is to utilize the connections that we have also with people maybe not immediately within our industry, right? But like you just said, like someone that really helped kind of save you, if you will, not save you, but you know what I mean, from a bad situation, is someone who doesn't necessarily, she's not an actor or a musician or someone who's in the industry in the same way, but she's like a friend or a friend of a friend or whatever, who's a lawyer, and it's still a connection that you have that you can use to your advantage. I think like not just like assuming that people who don't work in your industry can't help you is a good thing to keep in mind. You know what I mean? I hope that's clear.
Dave, do you have any other questions for Emma?
Um, what are you able to tell what my future entails from the stars?
Not really. I mean, I could try, but I think the avenue that I usually take with astrology is more psychological versus predictive. Um, Realistically, though, like if you're talking to an astrologer who does predictive astrology, they still might be able to tell you something based on um, just like the way things, like the actual meanings of like things like that. But I don't really do predictions. I could give you like a general maybe energy thing, like a general energy sort of like forecast, I guess. Um, I'm trying to think right now, like even just with what happened with the eclipse, right? Like that was happening for you in your, it looks like fifth and 11th houses. So I wouldn't be able to tell you like, oh, that means you're gonna come into wealth in this whatever, or you're gonna meet a person that you're gonna collaborate with. I don't know that type of stuff. But when you do have those those houses highlighted during like an eclipse, one of the things that you're called to release is, um, how your need to be seen or not seen is driving you into maybe connections that are not reciprocal or not balanced. It could be, this might be super random, but the people that you surround yourself with, like dating wise even, how they are distracting you from finding connections that are actually worth your time or that align with your values. It could be wounds around like your own creative self-expression and standing up for yourself that are leading you into imbalanced connections. And so what you're called to move into is Aries in the 11th house. It's being okay with kind of connecting with a larger collective energy instead of always needing to look at things from like, I'm the main character energy. It's kind of the idea of like, you are the main character of your own life. So am I. I'm the main character of my own life. Grace is the main character of her own life. But when we all come together, like, it's not like one of us is going to take the cake over the other, right? Like, all of us are here to shine. All of us have something unique to bring to the table. And the 11th house is Aquarius, actually. It's all about not just collaboration, not collaboration individually, but connecting with the whole collective, right? So I know it's something that we kind of have been talking about a little bit is like,
Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys had a informational episode learning about legalities. Is that even a word, legality? Am I just saying that right?
Legality, I think it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Legality. Okay.
The legalities and contract world. So if you guys are aspiring to be entertainers or any contracts in life, make sure to send this video to your friends. Thank you so much, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Dave. And thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see